Welcome to the Reconnect Factor, the podcast of the Power Play Reconnect experience. This is a place where you can rest your mind, play a little, and reconnect to your unique, authentic, and creative self. I'm your host, Ruth Haskins. Really happy you can be with me today. And of course, I'm going to start where we always start, by asking you what's going well for you today. And it's so easy to talk about what is not going well. For instance, I could say that my day started with a leak underneath the kitchen sink and that I had computer problems for nearly 3 hours. But I can also say that it has been a beautiful day. I received a call from a friend, and my cat kept me serene company as I battled with water and technology. So, on that note, take a moment to think before you answer. There is always something good. When we focus, we find it. Today's topic is about anger and fear. We are still working our way up the ladder of emotional vibrations. I like to start with a quote. Our feelings do not come from external events, but from our own thinking about the events. Therefore, we can only ever feel what we are thinking. From Joseph Wing. I think that's right. Fear is always the basis for anger. When anger is not recognized, fear grows into an awareness of loss, which brings on more anger. It becomes a circular movement, so to speak, and it gathers momentum. This results in an inner chaos, and we've all experienced this. And the fact that it extends out into our surroundings. In spite of ourselves, our anger just doesn't stay with us. It's like a vibration that it surrounds us, and it involves other people. And it can create situations which involve other people that we never intended to involve. So what is interesting about this circular motion of fear, anger, fear, is that it's so hard to tell which end to grab first. So we can grasp that we're angry and try to do something about the anger. Most of us know when we're angry. But sometimes we do all the wrong things. We try to squelch it. We sometimes pray about it. We sometimes ignore it. And sometimes we just run from it. Those are just a few choices. I'm sure people could come up with others. But even the best of these choices, praying about it, taking a moment to get quiet and silent about it, doesn't work until we get to the truth about our anger. And when we start heading down the path to discover the source of our anger, we run into this huge block called fear. Now, perhaps when we are angry, the best resource is to pause and figure out why we are angry. Okay, I'm going to give you a personal experience. And, from my experience today, I had a water issue. It started out as an annoyance. Oh my goodness, my kitchen sink is not functioning right. There is a leak. So I made all the appropriate calls and got no response. I became a little angry about 12:15. About noon, I started really seething because I have water dripping. And obviously, I live in an apartment building. Maintenance was not concerned, or that was my decision, that they were not concerned. And I felt that my calls were being ignored. But when I really stopped and took a look at it, the real problem was that I had a fear of having a water problem that I would not be able to contain. And the disaster that would follow, including the anger of my neighbors beneath me, would just be overwhelming. And I knew that if my neighbors beneath me were involved in any way, that the anger and fear would just spread. So it wasn't really about just the water leaking. I had created a whole scenario in my thinking about what this water leak could mean. So now the second example, technology. And we all know that technology is absolutely wonderful when it works. But nothing more needs to be said about that, because we know that sometimes technology fails. And when it fails, whether we like it or not, we tend to panic. And that panic can turn into anger. And so this morning's distress was that all around an app that would not work well. I could not update it. I tried changing it. I tried opening a new account. I tried changing my emails, my passwords. It just became a circular mess. And the more I dealt with it, the angrier I became. And the more angry I became, the more frustrated I became. And frustration is also a good indicator of fear. So the more I tried to understand why this particular app would not update, the more entangled I became in providing all the right information. And it was imperative that this app work because I had a meeting to attend. So I was angry because our technological world has become really kind of complicated. And so complicated that it's easy to get confused. And me not being a technological genius, I became very confused. And the more confused I became, the angrier I became. Why? Because the technology I was depending on was not working, and I was fearful of missing an important meeting. So now here's the part that always gets me when I get to the bottom of things, of what's really going on with me in any situation that really elicits a full-blown expression of emotions. The solution to both the water problem and the technology problem were the same. And that solution was, believe it or not, exercising patience. Come to find out, maintenance had a training meeting in the morning. They came as soon as they were free. Problem solved. Technology, I patiently stopped everything until I could ask the right question. When I did, I was instructed that if all else had failed, to uninstall and then reinstall or download the app again. Both problems solved with patience and time. But it wasn't just patience, though. It also required me backing up from both problems, letting go and letting them be. When I did, I was given the right information, the correct download. All this is really to say that so often our anger is really fear. We're fearful that we're going to lose something, that we're not going to have something, that, like this meeting was going to get blown out of the water because technology was not working. Fear that I'm going to have some sort of terrible flood in my kitchen. It's just fear of not having what we need when we think we need it. When that anger is about larger issues than water and technology, I had to stop and think about this. When that anger is about larger issues than water and technology, in my little situation, in my little me situation, then we grow a bigger circle of fear. We don't stop to search for the fear that lies beneath the anger. We react or act in ways that change a tiny, tiny flame into a cataclysmic event. And unfortunately, this is the history of humankind. You would think that by now we would have learned, this is a flame. It's a little teeny flame. Let's not blow this out of proportion. No, we don't do that. A small flame, it becomes a cataclysmic event. And sometimes these cataclysmic events are all surrounded, the center of it, the core of it, is an I, a me reality that we push out to the rest of everyone who's around us, and now with technology, anyone we can reach. So as a result, we live in the realm of low emotional vibrations with the higher vibrations of peace and love. Not vibrations at all, really, for us. They're just nice words. A good thought that we pretend to want. When I say this small flame changes into a cataclysmic event, it is often around the issue of power. And because we fear not having enough power, we decide to be angry about it, not realizing that the real issue is our fear of not having power, not having control. And all of this is in our thinking. This is our thinking that's doing this. It's also what's in our heart. But most of the time, it's our thinking that gets us into trouble. It takes a small flame and turns it into a major event. So whenever power is threatened, even in the smaller container of I and me, or we react with anger, not knowing that it is fear of loss of something that is powering our emotions. So we jump into this ever-evolving, ever-growing circle of anger and fear, never grabbing hold of what inspires this continuous cycle. This is something to think about, especially in the world that we live in now, where we can so easily transfer our ideas and feelings, our angers and our fears across the globe in nanoseconds. So I want you to think about this, because it has to do with our thinking, and our thinking, our fears, and our anger, our emotions all work together. Our thinking is not separate from our emotions. Our emotions are not separate from the way that we think. Our emotions can hijack our ability to think. And yet we can use our thinking to reel in our emotions and process them before we act. So for today's mini workshop, write down 3 things that have recently made you angry. Then write down the fear that the anger is hiding. You're going to have to do some work. You may have to do a little bit of journaling. And once you have a grip on the fear, take a good look at it. Is it valid? How would you have handled the situation if you had recognized that fear was the basis of your anger? Now, I know some of you may be listening when you can't really pause and write. So make a mental note and come back to this exercise later. More than just a thought. Really, more than just a thought. Our world seems to be running on fear and anger and power. Not a good mixture. This is the Reconnect Factor, the podcast of the Power Play Reconnect Experience. An interesting look at how our thinking doesn't give us accurate information can be found in Joseph Nguyen's book, Don't Believe Everything You Think, Why Your Thinking is the Beginning and End of Suffering, Beyond Suffering. Take a look at that book. It's available on Amazon and probably still in many good bookstores. The Power Play Reconnect Experience hosts creativity workshops. Our next workshop is scheduled for April 26, 2024. To learn more, contact us at pp.reconnectexperience@gmail.com. That's peterpaul.reconnectexperience@gmail.com. I'm glad that you were with us. Until next time, take time to rest your mind, play a little, and reconnect to your unique, authentic, and creative self. Thank you for listening.